Good day, it's January 6, 2025, the first Monday of the year and the anniversary of the 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to the Pulse.
And I'm Joe Buban. The MAGA factions and the so-called billionaire faction of the Republican Party like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy with the other anti-immigrant factions are infighting over the H-1B visa. The H-1B is a temporary non-immigrant visa category that allows employers to petition for highly skilled foreign professionals to work in specialty occupations that require at least a bachelor's degree, and those with highly professional skilled work, many of which are found in the tech industry. The anti-immigrant faction of Trump supporters rallied behind Elon Musk after he announced his support for Trump. After Trump's re-election, Trump promised implementation of mass deportation but changed his mind on limiting immigration to the highly skilled background, especially those from the technology area, like the ones coming from India. Vivek Ramaswamy posted on X, formerly Twitter, which sparked outrage and laughter online, highlighting that culture and an innate intelligence quotient is one of the reasons that tech companies hire foreign-born engineers over native-born Americans, and that America celebrates mediocrity over excellence, and that American culture celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champion. Prominent anti-immigrant supporters of Trump, like former congressional candidate Laura Loomer and former White House official and commentator Steve Bannon, supporters of Trump's mass deportation agenda, have lashed out against Elon Musk over the H-1B visa continuation, accusing Musk and Ramaswamy of stealing American jobs. Loomer accused Musk of being a welfare queen, while Bannon said that sociopathic Elon Musk and other tech company leaders owe reparations for the jobs stolen from Americans.
Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter has died at the age of 100 last December 29th. The former president was known to have one of the best foreign policy agendas, opening diplomatic ties to countries isolated from the world, ensuring world peace, and enclosing relations with China, getting nations in the Middle East to come together, ensuring long-term conservation energy and policies that would protect the environment, and for both United States and Russia, then Soviet Union, treaties that would minimize militarization and nuclear arsenals. The Carter administration oversaw the U.S.-backed Indonesian government on its atrocious war against Timor-Leste, or East Timor, and the complicity in supporting Chinese-backed atrocious Cambodian dictator Pol Pot, known for the killing fields. But his handling of the Islamic uprising in Iran against the U.S.-backed monarchy and failure to secure release of the hostages at the American embassy in Tehran led to his re-election defeat. Throughout his life after his presidency, Carter went on to continue his world peace and diplomatic policies and building housing for impoverished and homeless people across the globe through his Habitat for Humanity. Carter was vocal against Israel's action in Palestine and the segregationist system implemented against Palestinians and other Muslims, and attempted to get North and South Korea together. He went to form the Carter Center, funded by the U.S. government, which oversees world elections on whether or not elections so-called America's enemies hold a sham or fair elections, even admitting that so-called authoritarian countries hold better elections than the U.S. Here is a video glimpse of his take back in 2012.
What is the state of democracy in Latin America following the dismissal of Paraguay's President Hugo Chavez's re-election bid in Venezuela and the refusal to recognize results of the Mexican election by the main contender?
I went to Washington this week and made a speech basically about this issue. The Carter Center has began its election monitoring process in Latin America, in Nicaragua and Panama. We've done elections in Peru. We've done 3 or 4 elections in Venezuela. We've done elections in Paraguay and so forth, and helped with in Bolivia. So those are the kind of things that we've done, and also in Mexico. So we've learned a lot about democracy in Latin America, and they have made a lot of progress. Some of the problems that John mentioned are serious, but I think that the elections in Venezuela, although some people have criticized the result, which is Hugo Chavez having won, there's no doubt in our mind, having monitored very closely the election process, that he won fairly and squarely.
While others in Washington want to ignite conflicts, Carter was there to ensure opening trade and diplomacy and making sure the Americans learned from the world. President Carter died about a year after his wife, First Lady Rosalynn, had died. Mr. President, you will be missed.
In news relating to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, their Trump governing body, so-called Department of Government Efficiency, inspired by the Doge name after the crypto Dogecoin, which claims to deregulate government and limit government spending, claimed that their first target to defund or eliminate from the U.S. government is the so-called National Endowment for Democracy, which is an organization that many say is a cutout of the Central Intelligence Agency. While there are some positive views of the organization, most have criticized in their complicity with the intelligence of overthrowing governments. It was formed during the administration of President Reagan, in which Reagan, quote, to foster the infrastructure of democracy, the system of free press, unions, political parties, and universities, unquote. However, in 1991, archivist and NED founder Alan Weinstein was caught saying that, quote-unquote, a lot of what we do here was done covertly by the CIA 25 years ago, referencing to the covert operations in the 1960s. Former CIA agent Philip A.G. shared a lot of insights between the CIA and the NED.
What happened was the long-running CIA's control and manipulation of the international program of the National Students Association in this country, which was the national organization of university students, came out. It was revealed. And that led to revelations of a lot of other CIA operations, because they were using the same bogus and real foundations to channel money into all these different overseas organizations.
The endowment has umbrella bodies like the National Democratic Institute for the Democratic Party and the International Republican Institute for the Republican Party. Here is a reaction from Libertarian, former Republican Congressman Ron Paul.
We want to talk a little bit about an article that we found fascinating, and that has to do we want to pass on some modest advice. Modest advice to the Department of Government Efficiency. You know, they've sort of invited me to say a word or two. We now, you and I have talked about it, we think it would be a real achievement. We've been working on this for a few years, haven't we?
A few years.
And we didn't achieve it back in the 80s. We didn't get rid of anything, but we called attention to it.
Outgoing North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper has commuted death sentences for 15 inmates in the death row to life in prison without parole. Before Tuesday, North Carolina had 136 offenders on death row. Cooper's office said that it had received clemency petitions from 89 of them. These reviews are among the most difficult decisions a governor can make, and the death penalty is most severe sentence that the state can impose, Cooper released in a statement. No inmate has been executed in the state since 2006 due to ongoing litigation. Many of those inmates petitioned under the Racial Justice Act of 2009, which allowed inmates to seek resentencing in cases of racial bias by prosecutors demonstrated during the trial, leading to a death penalty conviction. Cooper has said he selected a small group of inmates for commutations due to various factors, including a defendant's mental capacity at the time of the crime, behavior while incarcerated, and ineffective legal representation offered, amid other factors. We are going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we will tell you about a new law in Nevada that had taken effect in 2025, banning purchase of drones. Please stay tuned for more.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Among the new laws that took effect this week in the state of Nevada is Senate Bill 11, which allows local government to use drones to conduct building and fire safety inspections. The bill passed with the support of all legislatures except for two Democrats, Sarah Peters from Reno and Sandra Summers Armstrong from Las Vegas, and State Senators Lisa Krasner of Reno and Robib Titus of Wellington, both Republicans. But what is the purchase ban? That aspect of the legislation allowing drones to be used by local government in building fire and safety inspection actually took effect in October of 2023. However, starting in January 1 this year, local governments can no longer buy drones from certain Chinese military companies identified by the U.S. Department of Defense. This ban is similar to the federal and on the use of the computer devices made by the Chinese company Huawei, whereby the entire federal government, including contractors doing business with the U.S. government, cannot use Huawei devices in their offices or its operations.
Another law that took effect in Nevada is the sales tax exemption of diapers. Senate Bill 428 is the bill that allowed diapers to be exempted from state's sales tax in Nevada, took effect January 1st. After more than 68% of the voters approved the ballot measure during the November 2024 election, exempting diapers from sales tax and passed by the Assembly and the State Senate unanimously. Diapers exemption from sales tax will benefit significantly mothers with babies and infants and senior citizens of all genders who are incontinent and those with disabilities.
For motorcycle riders, that means the drivers, not back passengers. A new law also took effect. Senate Bill 428 waives the penalties for motorcycle riders who get pulled over without a motorcycle's license if they attend a motorcycle course and get licensed within 9 months. The legislation was spearheaded by a UNLV medical school student who sought to make the state's motorcycle licensing process simpler and safer, as he found that licensure courses were consistently booked and were minimal penalties for riding without a license, according to a report by the Nevada Independent. The only ones who opposed the bill in the legislature were Nevada's 8 Republican state senators.
The 2023-24 session of the Nevada legislature did one of the big things for the labor force, ending sub-minimum wage for disabled employees, also taking effect. Assembly Bill 259 will phase out all sub-minimum wage employment in Nevada by January 1st of 2028. The bill finally passed unanimously after a failed effort in 2019 to end sub-minimum wages. President Joe Biden's administration also recently took steps to phase out sub-minimum wage for people with disabilities nationwide. The U.S. Department of Labor released a proposed rule in early December that would immediately stop issuance of certificates allowing employers to pay a sub-minimum wage. Such rule is still within the public comment period, and its future remains uncertain under President-elect Donald Trump's administration.
How about laws anywhere in the U.S. taking effect concerning artificial intelligence, or AI? 2 states will begin to regulate the use of artificial intelligence with the aim of mitigating the potential harms of the rapidly growing technology. In Illinois, it will become illegal to knowingly distribute audio or visual-based digital replicas of individuals created through generative AI without their consent. The act also applies a 50-year prohibition on the use of a digital replica of an individual after their death if they did not previously consent to such use. However, there are still certain instances to which the act does not apply, such as parody or when there is a political public interest, educational, or newsworthy value of the digital replica, as long as it is not falsely presented as authentic. Another Illinois law addresses AI-generated child pornography, prohibiting the use of the technology to create obscene material of a real or purported child. The law also separately prohibits the non-consensual dissemination of sexually explicit digitalized depictions, which is a Class 4 felony.
In California, the law is tackling on the use of AI in Hollywood. One law will require informed consent by performers in the entertainment industry to replicate their voice or likeness with AI, while the second law will extend the protection to digital replicas produced within 70 years of a personality's death, with few exceptions. We are going to take a commercial break. Please stay with us.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
In our world news, the worst airline tragedy in South Korea is a fiery plane crash that killed 179 people at Muan International Airport on Sunday last week. An airplane belly landed and went off the end of the runway, exploding in a blaze as it crashed into a wall, killing 179 people in the deadliest air catastrophe in South Korea's history.
Syria's interim government promises security, employment, and justice in the new era, according to Al Jazeera. Syria's new interim government spokeswoman told Al Jazeera that efforts to create a just judicial system are a top priority. According to the spokesperson for the interim administration, Syria's new leaders have promised to establish special courts for individuals who committed crimes against Syrians while President Bashar al-Assad was in power. Restoring public confidence in the rule of law and the nation's judicial system is a major goal for the new government as it ushers in a new era, according to Obaid Arnott, in an interview with Osama bin Javaid of Al Jazeera. According to Arnott, this is only possible if those responsible for the imprisonment and torture of hundreds of thousands of Syrians in al-Assad's government infamous jails are held accountable. We hope to mend the profound scars inflicted upon our society and clear the path for a more just and equitable future by holding criminals accountable, Arnott stated. She continued to say individuals who had been dedicated professionals and loyal to their country will be given preference by the incoming leaders. Arnott stated that the new government is dedicated to revitalizing our country and sought the advice of Syrians from all walks of life as well as from all ethnic and religious origins. That anyone can apply for open positions. To create the nation, we must coordinate our efforts, he stated. Additionally, Arnott called for the removal of decades-old sanctions against Syria, claiming that they have deeply affected the people.
It is seldom in Europe that you will hear news about mass shootings in the civilian sector, but in the country of Montenegro, 12 people were killed in a horrible mass shooting before the assailant killed himself. For many of you who haven't heard of Montenegro, this young country is a republic formed as a breakaway from the former Yugoslavia after the death of leader Josip Tito, or also known as Marshal Tito. The country's capital is Podgorica, which was a story set in the James Bond 007 movie Casino Royale, which was played by British actor Daniel Craig. According to police report coming out of Podgorica, the shooter, identified as 45-year-old Arko Martinovic, killed the owner of the bar's owner's children, and his own family members, officials have said. The attacker, who first fled after the rampage, was later located and surrounded by police. He died after shooting himself in the head, Interior Minister Danilo Saranovic said. Police found an illegally owned handgun and 90 more rounds on Martinovic's body. Later on Thursday in Podgorica and most other cities in Montenegro, scores of people gathered in silence to light candles to commemorate the victims. Sanja Janovic, the middle-aged woman from Podgorica, said she was angry over the government's unwillingness to accept its share of responsibility for the violence that permeates the society. The society is in a crisis, Janovic said. Police said Martinovic had been drinking heavily. In 2022, police found 2 air guns and a homemade bomb at his home. He was sentenced to 3 months in jail, but appealed and court proceedings were still ongoing at the time of the shooting. He was also ordered to undergo psychiatric evaluation. Prime Minister Milorko Spajic declared 3 days of national mourning and scheduled a session of the National Security Council for Friday to discuss the aftermath of the shooting and how to restrict illegal weapons, the government said. Venezuela commemorates the 221st Independence Day of Haiti and the 66th anniversary of the Cuban Revolution. Venezuela's Foreign Minister Ivan Gil posted messages on their fight and resistance against foreign aggression and exploitation from world powers, such as the United States and the European Union. Haiti was the second country after the United States to overthrow and declare independence from a colonial power. Haiti's impoverished economy had been a result of Haiti paying debt to France for their independence and casualties against French soldiers. Cuba has been a victim of the United States' economic warfare after the leftist government overthrew the US-backed dictatorship of Fulgencio Batista. While Cuban expats in the United States blamed the communist government for Cuba's economic setbacks, international observers have concluded the fact that the US has posted economic sanctions and embargo and threatened to shut down multinational companies who do business with Cuba. Venezuela has raised alarms to other countries in South America over the election of Donald Trump, whom Trump has selected Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who is Cuban-American, as Secretary for the Department of State. Rubio has advocated for neoconservative foreign policy objectives for the U.S. on Latin American nations and neoliberal free market privatized economies for South America, marking that Rubio speaks for the United States of overthrowing governments that what he deemed as communist and socialist. Cuba and Bolivia are two latest nations to join the alliance of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, or known as BRICS, in order to counter the threat of U.S. aggression. BRICS was formed in the early 2010s as a direct result of the aggressive and unnecessary foreign policy objectives of the United States and the European Union.
We will leave it at that as we are out of time for this edition. Please join us again next week here at The Pulse. I'm Sam Buban for FilAmTV Network. We wish you a happy and a prosperous year in 2025.
And I'm Joe Buban. God bless your new year, 2025.